Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair watching the stars through the main screen of the USS Defiance. The ship was 3 weeks into a survey mission in the Kepler 442 system when Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez turned from her communication station with wide eyes. She had been monitoring deep space frequencies when something strange appeared on her sensors. Morrison walked over to look at her screen and saw patterns he had never seen before. The signals were too organized to be natural and too complex to be from any human ship. Amy worked quickly to decode the transmission, while Chief Engineer Carlos Vega ran diagnostics on their equipment. Science Officer Dr. Lisa Park joined them at the communications station and helped analyze the data. The patterns showed mathematical sequences that proved intelligence behind them. Morrison felt excitement and worry at the same time because this was what humanity had been searching for, but also what they had feared. The USS Defiance was a small exploration ship with a crew of 200 people. They were not prepared for first contact with alien life, but Morrison knew they had to follow protocol. He ordered Amy to send standard greeting messages, while Dr. Park prepared scientific data about humanity. Carlos checked all ship systems to make sure they were working properly in case something went wrong. 3 hours later, the alien response came, and it was not what anyone expected. Massive ships appeared on their sensors coming from the edge of the system. Morrison counted 50 vessels, each one larger than any human ship ever built. The alien fleet moved in perfect formation, and their technology was clearly far beyond anything humans possessed. The USS Defiance looked like a small boat next to these giants. Amy received another transmission, and this time it included translation protocols. The aliens had studied human communication methods during their approach and could now speak English. A deep voice filled the bridge of the USS Defiance, and Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. The alien speaker identified himself as Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire, and his words were both polite and threatening. Admiral Kethvar explained that the Zephyrian Empire had been watching human development for some time. He said humans had reached the level where they must choose their future path. They could join the Empire as valued members or be conquered and forced to serve. The Admiral made it sound like a generous offer, but Morrison understood it was really an ultimatum. Submit or be destroyed. The alien Admiral activated a holographic display that showed inside the USS Defiance. Morrison saw images of 12 different alien species, all serving the Zephyrian Empire in various roles. Some worked in factories, while others served as soldiers or scientists. All of them had submitted to Zephyrian rule without fighting. Admiral Kethvar said these species had chosen wisdom over pride and now lived in peace under Empire protection. Dr. Park studied the holographic data, while Carlos monitored the alien ships for any sign of weapons charging. Amy kept the communication channel open and recorded everything for Earth to analyze later. Morrison knew he was facing the most important decision in human history, and he had only minutes to choose. The weight of representing all humanity pressed down on his shoulders. Admiral Kethvar gave Morrison 30 minutes to decide whether humans would kneel before the Empire or face the consequences. The alien commander seemed confident that humans would make the logical choice and submit like all the others. He had conquered 12 species, and none had chosen to fight against impossible odds. Humans would surely be the same. Morrison looked around his bridge at his crew and saw determination in their eyes. Amy Rodriguez had tears on her face, but her hands stayed steady on her controls. Carlos Vega checked weapon systems, even though their guns were useless against the alien fleet. Dr. Park continued analyzing alien technology, looking for any weakness they could exploit. These people represented the best of humanity, and Morrison knew they would rather die than kneel. When Admiral Kethvar called for his answer, Morrison stood up straight and looked directly into the holographic display. He told the alien commander that humans did not kneel to anyone and would never serve an empire built on conquest. Morrison said Earth would fight with everything they had, rather than accept slavery dressed up as protection. His words shocked the Zephyrian admiral, who had never heard such defiance from a weaker species. The alien fleet powered up weapons, but Admiral Kethvar held them back. He seemed genuinely puzzled by human refusal to accept obvious reality. The admiral gave Earth 30 days to reconsider their foolish choice while he prepared for conquest. He warned that resistance would only bring suffering, but Morrison did not change his answer. Humans would stand tall even if it meant standing alone. As the alien fleet moved toward Earth, Morrison ordered Amy to send a warning message to all human colonies and military commands. The message was simple but clear. Prepare for war because humanity had chosen freedom over safety. The USS Defiance followed the alien fleet at maximum speed, hoping to gather intelligence that might help in the coming battle. Morrison knew they were heading toward the greatest challenge in human history, but felt proud that humanity had refused to kneel when the universe demanded it. General Frank Collins stood in the war room beneath Mount Cheyenne watching reports flood in from around the world. The 30 days Admiral Kethvar had given Earth were over, and the Zephyrian invasion had begun exactly as promised. Enemy ships appeared in orbit above every major city, while smaller craft descended to attack military bases and communication centers. The alien technology was devastating, but Collins refused to let despair show on his face. Admiral Susan Wright coordinated the space defense from her command center, while Dr. Tony Jang worked frantically in his laboratory to understand captured alien technology. The first skirmishes had provided wreckage from damaged Zephyrian scouts, and Tony's team was learning fast. They discovered the aliens used energy shields and plasma weapons, but the basic principles were not beyond human understanding. The problem was building defenses quickly enough to matter. Commander Pete Adams led his unit through the ruins of New Angeles, where Zephyrian forces had destroyed most of the city center. The aliens seemed to target government buildings and military installations while leaving residential areas mostly intact. Pete realized they wanted to capture humans, not exterminate them, which gave the resistance an advantage. Civilians could hide and support guerrilla operations, while alien forces tried to maintain control over a hostile population. The Zephyrian invasion strategy was based on their experience with other species who surrendered after losing their major cities. Human behavior confused the alien commanders because resistance actually increased after each defeat. Major Kate Johnson organized cells across the former United States and reported that recruitment was rising faster than casualties. Every destroyed city created more fighters, not fewer. Admiral Wright's space forces fought desperately against overwhelming odds, but managed to inflict some damage on the enemy fleet. Captain Ryan Bell commanded a destroyer group that used hit and run tactics against Zephyrian supply convoys. The aliens had to protect their logistics lines, which spread their forces thinner than expected. Commander Nina Torres led fighter squadrons that struck fast and retreated before enemy reinforcements could respond. Sub-Admiral Velthar commanded the Zephyrian ground forces and found himself dealing with problems no previous conquest had presented. Human civilians refused to cooperate with occupation forces and actively sabotaged alien equipment. Workers in captured factories would rather destroy machinery than produce goods for their conquerors. The Zephyrians had expected grateful populations welcoming stable government, not constant resistance from every level of society. Dr. Zhang made his first breakthrough when he successfully reverse-engineered a Zephyrian communication device. The aliens used quantum entanglement for instant communication across vast distances, but their encryption was based on mathematical principles humans could crack. Tony's team began intercepting enemy messages and learned that Zephyrian commanders were reporting unexpected difficulties to their high command. General Collins organized the Global Resistance Network using secure communication channels that bypassed destroyed infrastructure. Mountain strongholds and underground bunkers became command centers for regional operations. The aliens controlled major cities, but vast areas of countryside remained in human hands. Collins realized Earth had become a giant guerrilla warfare, training ground where humans learned to fight an enemy with superior technology. Pete Adams discovered that Zephyrian soldiers were not used to fighting in urban environments against desperate opponents. The aliens had trained for conventional warfare against organized military forces, not street fighting against civilians with improvised weapons. His teams began using the city ruins as a maze, where alien advantages in firepower meant less than human knowledge of local terrain. The psychological impact of human resistance began affecting Zephyrian morale as reports came in from across the Empire. Other conquered species were watching Earth's fight with growing interest, and some began questioning their own submission to alien rule. Admiral Kethvar found himself dealing with unrest on worlds that had been peaceful for centuries. The human example was spreading like a virus through the Empire. Major Johnson's resistance cells perfected the art of disappearing into civilian populations after striking at alien targets. The Zephyrians could not tell fighters from non-combatants because humans all looked similar to alien eyes. This forced occupation forces to treat every human as a potential threat, which created more resentment and more recruits for the resistance movement. Captain Bell's naval forces learned to use Earth's orbital debris field as cover for surprise attacks. Destroyed satellites and space stations provided hiding places where small human ships could wait for Zephyrian convoys. The aliens had cleared major shipping lanes but could not monitor every piece of wreckage in Earth's crowded orbital space. Bell's destroyers became ghosts that struck without warning and vanished before retaliation. 6 months into the invasion, Admiral Kethvar requested additional forces from the Empire, but was told that other territories needed attention due to growing unrest. For the first time in Zephyrian history, a conquest was taking longer than planned and requiring more resources than budgeted. The High Command began questioning whether Earth was worth the cost of continued fighting. Commander Torres led a daring raid on a Zephyrian supply depot and captured advanced weapons that human engineers quickly copied and improved. The aliens discovered that humans could master their technology faster than any species they had encountered before. What took other civilizations generations to understand, humans learned in months through trial and error combined with intuitive leaps. General Collins received reports that human colonies on other worlds had begun their own resistance movements inspired by Earth's example. The Mars settlements and asteroid mining stations refused Zephyrian demands for surrender and started building defensive networks. Collins realized the war had spread beyond Earth and become a fight for human independence throughout the solar system. The siege of Earth continued. But the character of the conflict was changing as humans adapted to fighting a technologically superior enemy, and the Zephyrians struggled to understand opponents who grew stronger through adversity rather than weaker through loss. Engineer Danny Kim worked through his 3rd straight day without sleep in the underground laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains. 6 months of war had given humanity enough salvaged Zephyrian technology to begin serious reverse engineering projects. And Danny's team had just achieved their greatest breakthrough. They had successfully adapted alien shield generators to work with human power systems, creating the first effective defense against Zephyrian plasma weapons. Dr. Sharon Wu tested new metal alloys in her laboratory using materials found in destroyed alien ships. The Zephyrians used elements not found naturally on Earth, but their wrecked vessels provided enough samples for Wu to analyze their properties. She discovered that alien hull materials could be reproduced using modified manufacturing techniques, and these new alloys were much stronger than anything humans had previously created. Governor Chris Taylor led 2 million colonists on New Terra in a coordinated uprising against their Zephyrian occupiers. The planet had been captured early in the war, but Taylor had spent months organizing a secret resistance network. When the uprising began, colonists used captured alien weapons and locally manufactured explosives to drive occupation forces from major population centers. The Zephyrians had not expected organized rebellion from a supposedly pacified world. Captain Alex Stone commanded the USS Vengeance, which had been rebuilt using hybrid human and alien technology after being destroyed in the first week of the war. His crew included demolitions expert Bobby Chen and pilot Rachel Green, who had both become experts at using enemy equipment better than the enemies themselves. Stone's mission was to raid Zephyrian research facilities and capture advanced technology for human scientists to study. The Zephyrians discovered that their rigid command structure could not adapt quickly enough to counter human tactical flexibility. Admiral Kethvar ordered his commanders to study human military doctrine, but found that humans rarely used the same strategy twice. Every battle taught human forces new lessons, while Zephyrian forces continued using methods that had worked against other species but failed against humans. Sergeant Helen Russo led a special operations team that captured Sub-Admiral Velthar during a raid on a Zephyrian command post. Under interrogation, the alien commander revealed that other species in the Empire were beginning to question Zephyrian authority for the first time in centuries. The human example was inspiring rebellions on worlds that had been peaceful for generations, and the Empire was struggling to maintain control. Dr. Phil Santos broadcast daily messages from hidden transmission stations encouraging human resistance and providing tactical advice to guerrilla fighters worldwide. His broadcasts were also received by alien populations throughout the Zephyrian Empire, who began to understand that resistance was possible even against overwhelming odds. Santos became the voice of human defiance and inspired hope in species that had forgotten what freedom meant. Danny Kim's team completed their second major project when they successfully modified Zephyrian weapons to use human ammunition and targeting systems. The hybrid weapons were more accurate and reliable than pure alien technology because human engineering focused on simplicity and durability rather than complexity. Alien weapons were impressive but often failed under battlefield conditions that human designs handled easily. The battle for New Terra demonstrated how much human military capability had evolved since the war began. Governor Taylor's forces used captured alien vehicles, modified with human armor and weapons, creating devastating combinations that Zephyrian forces had never encountered. The colonists fought with knowledge gained from months of studying enemy tactics, while the aliens struggled to understand how humans could master their technology so quickly. Captain Stone's raid on the Wolf 359 research station provided intelligence that changed human understanding of the war. The facility contained records showing that 12 different species served the Zephyrian Empire, but none had ever successfully resisted conquest before. The aliens had developed their military doctrine based on fighting opponents who surrendered quickly, not enemies who adapted and improved throughout long conflicts. Dr. Wu's metallurgy advances allowed human shipyards to begin producing vessels that could survive direct hits from Zephyrian plasma cannons. The new hull materials were lighter and stronger than alien equivalents because human engineers optimized their designs for combat effectiveness rather than showing off technological superiority. Function mattered more than form in human engineering. Philosophy. Sergeant Russo's intelligence operations revealed that several alien species within the Empire were secretly supporting human resistance efforts. The Altarians had been enslaved for 3 centuries, but still remembered their independence and began providing information about Zephyrian military weaknesses. Other species followed their example as news of human successes spread throughout the Empire. The Zephyrians attempted to break human morale by destroying entire cities, but this strategy backfired completely. Each destroyed city created thousands of new resistance fighters who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain from victory. Human psychology was fundamentally different from other species because adversity made humans more determined rather than more willing to surrender. Dr. Santos's broadcasts began including messages from liberated alien populations thanking humans for showing them that freedom was possible. These messages were intercepted by Zephyrian intelligence, who realized that the human rebellion was spreading beyond Earth and becoming a galaxy-wide movement against imperial rule. The Empire faced its first existential crisis in over 1,000 years. Captain Stone led a joint operation with New Terra colonists to capture a Zephyrian fleet base in the outer system. The combined human forces used tactics that no single unit could have accomplished alone, demonstrating that human cooperation across different worlds was creating military advantages the aliens could not match. Independent human settlements were becoming a unified resistance network. Engineer Kim's team produced their most ambitious project when they built the first human ship powered by modified Zephyrian engines, but controlled by human navigation and weapons systems. The hybrid vessel combined the best features of both technologies while eliminating weaknesses that had been built into alien designs. Human creativity was improving upon alien science in ways the original creators had never imagined. The war entered its second year with humanity no longer simply surviving, but beginning to win battles against technologically superior opponents. Human adaptability had overcome alien advantages, while Zephyrian rigidity prevented them from developing effective countermeasures. The species that refused to kneel was teaching the galaxy to stand tall. Admiral Jason Ward stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the hybrid human fleet prepare for their first major offensive operation. 2 years of defensive fighting had taught humanity everything they needed to know about Zephyrian tactics and technology. Now Ward commanded 50 ships built with combined human and alien systems, crewed by veterans who understood their enemies better than the enemies understood themselves. Captain Steve Martin piloted his destroyer through the outer edge of the Wolf 359 system, where Zephyrian forces had established their main staging area for attacks on Earth. His ship carried modified alien weapons controlled by human targeting computers, creating combinations that were more effective than either technology alone. Martin's crew had learned to think like Zephyrians while maintaining human unpredictability in combat. The battle began when human forces emerged from hyperspace in a formation that confused Zephyrian commanders. Admiral Ward had studied alien fleet movements for months and knew they expected attacks from specific directions based on conventional military doctrine. Instead, the human fleet approached from 6 different vectors, simultaneously forcing the aliens to divide their defensive fire. Colonel Kim Anderson coordinated planetary defense operations from a mobile command center that moved constantly to avoid enemy detection. Her network included thousands of resistance cells that had evolved from desperate survivors into a sophisticated military organization. Anderson's forces could strike anywhere on Earth within hours and disappear before Zephyrian reinforcements arrived. Dr. Barry Cox had developed enhancement procedures that improved human physical capabilities without changing basic human nature. The enhanced soldiers were faster and stronger, but retained human creativity and tactical flexibility that alien training could not match. Cox's volunteers became super soldiers who could fight Zephyrians in direct combat while maintaining advantages in adaptability and innovation. Captain Martin's destroyer engaged 3 Zephyrian cruisers using tactics that violated every principle of conventional space warfare. His ship attacked from above, while dropping mines behind and firing missiles from the sides, creating a 3-dimensional assault pattern that overwhelmed alien defensive systems. The Zephyrians had never encountered such chaotic but effective combat methods. Lieutenant Julia Ford led information warfare operations that broadcast human victories throughout the Zephyrian Empire. Her transmissions reached enslaved populations who began organizing their own resistance movements inspired by human success. Ford's psychological warfare was as important as physical battles because it turned the Empire's own communication networks against Imperial authority. Admiral Ward's flagship destroyed the main Zephyrian command vessel using a human innovation that combined alien shield penetrators with human explosive warheads. The hybrid weapon punched through energy barriers and delivered devastating damage that pure alien technology could not achieve. Ward realized that human improvements on alien designs were creating qualitative advantages that overcome quantitative disadvantages. The liberation of New Terra became a turning point when combined human forces demonstrated new levels of tactical coordination. Governor Taylor's colonists worked with Earth military units and enhanced soldiers in operations that showed how human cooperation created strength multipliers. Different human groups shared knowledge and resources in ways that alien species serving the Empire never did. Colonel Anderson's enhanced soldiers proved their worth during the defense of the Australian continent, where Zephyrian forces attempted a major ground offensive. The enhanced humans could match alien physical capabilities while using superior human tactics and battlefield adaptability. Anderson's troops outfought enemies who had conquered 12 different species using the same methods. Dr. Cox's research revealed that human genetic diversity was actually an advantage in warfare because different human populations had developed different problem-solving approaches. Mixed units combined various human traditions, creating tactical innovations that pure alien military doctrine could not counter. Human diversity was strength, while alien uniformity was weakness. Captain Martin led a squadron of hybrid ships in the first successful assault on a Zephyrian fleet base, where his forces captured enough technology to equip 10 more human vessels. The aliens discovered that their own weapons were being used against them more effectively than they used them themselves. Human engineering was extracting capabilities from alien technology that the original designers had not realized existed. Lieutenant Ford's broadcasts began including messages from liberated alien populations who thanked humans for showing them how to fight for freedom. The Altarians launched coordinated uprisings across 12 star systems, while the Centauri rebels began sabotaging Zephyrian infrastructure. Ford's information warfare was turning the Empire against itself. Admiral Ward realized that human forces had achieved technological parity with their enemies while maintaining tactical superiority through adaptability and innovation. The Zephyrian Empire had stopped expanding for the first time in centuries because they needed all available forces to suppress rebellions inspired by human resistance. The war was no longer about Earth survival but about freedom for the entire galaxy. The battle for Wolf 359 ended with complete human victory when Zephyrian forces retreated from the system after losing half their fleet. Admiral Ward's ships had demonstrated that human tactical doctrine combined with hybrid technology could defeat any enemy force regardless of numerical advantages. The retreat shocked Zephyrian High Command, who had never lost a major engagement. Colonel Anderson received reports that human resistance movements had spontaneously appeared on worlds throughout the galaxy as news of victories spread. Mars colonists had driven off Zephyrian occupation forces while asteroid miners were building their own combat fleets. Humanity was no longer fighting alone, but leading a galaxy-wide rebellion against imperial tyranny. Dr. Cox's enhanced humans began training alien volunteers who wanted to join the liberation movement. The combination of human tactical knowledge with alien species capabilities created new types of soldiers that neither side had anticipated. Cox realized that cooperation between species could achieve more than any single group fighting alone. Captain Martin's success at Wolf 359 proved that human starship tactics had evolved beyond anything alien military academies taught their officers. The Zephyrians were trained to fight other alien species using established doctrines, but humans created new methods of warfare that made traditional training obsolete. Innovation defeated experience in space combat. Lieutenant Ford's psychological operations reached the Zephyrian homeworld, where Imperial citizens learned for the first time that their empire was losing battles against primitive humans. The information caused civil unrest on worlds that had been peaceful for generations, as populations questioned whether their government had been telling them the truth about human capabilities. The tide of war had turned decisively in humanity's favor as the species that refused to kneel began teaching the galaxy how to stand together against oppression and fight for freedom that tyranny could not destroy. Captain Brad Wilson commanded the diplomatic vessel USS Unity as it approached the Altarian home system where rebellion had been burning for 6 months since human victories inspired enslaved populations throughout the galaxy. The Altarians had been conquered 3 centuries ago but never forgotten their independence and now fought with desperate courage against their Zephyrian oppressors. Wilson's mission was to establish formal alliance between humanity and the growing resistance movement. Dr. Mary Thompson worked in the joint research facility established on liberated New Terra, where human and alien scientists collaborated on projects that combined different technological approaches. The Altarians brought expertise in energy manipulation, while the Centauri rebels contributed advanced materials science. Thompson realized that cooperation between species was creating innovations that no single civilization could achieve alone. Commander Joe Martinez coordinated combined fleet operations between human ships and Altarian vessels that had broken free from Imperial control. The alien ships used different propulsion systems and weapons, but Martinez's tactical doctrine adapted human flexibility to work with alien capabilities. The combined fleets achieved results that neither force could accomplish independently. Admiral Kethvar found himself commanding an empire that was collapsing from within as rebellions spread faster than his forces could suppress them. The Zephyrian military had been designed to conquer new territories, not hold rebellious populations, and every world that joined the human-led alliance required more troops to contain. Kethvar requested reinforcements from the homeworld, but was told that internal security took priority over external expansion. President Linda Clark spoke for Earth's government when Captain Wilson transmitted the first formal alliance proposal from liberated alien species. The Altarians offered military cooperation and technological exchange in return for human tactical expertise and leadership coordination. Clark accepted the alliance but insisted that all member species retain full independence after victory over the Empire. Staff Sergeant Greg Smith trained Altarian resistance fighters at the secret base established in the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. The aliens learned human guerrilla tactics while teaching humans about Zephyrian military procedures and Imperial administration. Smith discovered that Altarian natural abilities combined with human training methods created soldiers more effective than either species could produce alone. Dr. Sandy Lopez developed translation and communication protocols that allowed 12 different species to coordinate military operations despite completely different languages and thought patterns. Her work became the foundation for alliance cooperation as rebel forces shared intelligence and resources across the galaxy. Lopez realized that diversity in communication methods was actually strengthening the alliance by preventing Zephyrian interception. Field Marshal Gethmar commanded Zephyrian forces trying to contain the Centauri rebellion, but found that traditional Imperial tactics failed against enemies trained by human advisors. The rebels used hit-and-run attacks combined with psychological warfare that demoralized Imperial troops who had been told they were fighting primitive species. Gethmar began questioning whether the Empire's expansion had created vulnerabilities that enemies could exploit. The Alliance fleet achieved its first major victory when combined human and Altarian forces liberated the Vega system from Zephyrian control. Commander Martinez used human tactical doctrine while Altarian ships provided firepower and alien engineers repaired battle damage using techniques that human mechanics could not match. The victory demonstrated that cooperation was multiplying Alliance capabilities. Dr. Thompson's research team made breakthrough discoveries when they combined human adaptability with Altarian energy science and Centauri materials engineering. The hybrid technologies were superior to anything any single species had developed, because different approaches to problem-solving created solutions that no one group would have imagined. Thompson knew that Alliance science was advancing faster than Imperial research. Sergeant Smith's training programs expanded to include volunteers from 6 different species as the rebellion spread throughout the galaxy. Each alien group brought unique capabilities that enhanced overall Alliance effectiveness when combined with human tactical knowledge. Smith realized that the Empire's greatest weakness was its failure to utilize the diversity of its member species. Admiral Kethvar received reports that civilian populations on Zephyrian worlds were questioning Imperial propaganda about human primitiveness. Citizens who had been told that aliens were inferior were learning that humans and their allies were winning battles against supposedly superior Imperial forces. Kethvar knew that loss of civilian confidence would eventually destroy the Empire from within. President Clark addressed the Alliance Council, where representatives from 15 species pledged to fight together until all worlds were free from Imperial domination. Each species contributed different strengths, but all followed human leadership. In strategic planning, because humanity had proven that freedom was possible even against overwhelming odds, Clark promised that the Alliance would never become a new empire. Dr. Lopez's communication networks allowed Alliance forces to coordinate operations across hundreds of light years in real time. Rebel fleets could support each other instantly while Imperial forces still relied on slower-than-light communication between distant commanders. Lopez's work was giving the Alliance decisive advantages in information warfare that multiplied their tactical successes. Captain Wilson negotiated with rebel leaders on 12 worlds, establishing supply lines and mutual defense agreements that created a galaxy-spanning resistance network. The Alliance was no longer just a collection of separate rebellions, but a unified force capable of challenging Imperial power on every front simultaneously. Wilson knew that coordination was transforming local uprisings into galactic revolution. Field Marshal Gethmar lost 3 star systems in 1 week when Alliance forces demonstrated new levels of tactical coordination that his Imperial training could not counter. The rebels fought like humans, but used alien technologies in combinations that Imperial doctrine had never anticipated. Gethmar realized that the Empire faced enemies who were evolving faster than Imperial forces could adapt. Commander Martinez led the largest Alliance fleet ever assembled in an attack on the Rigel system, which served as a major Imperial military base. The combined forces included ships from 8 different species, but operated under unified human command structure that maximized each group's capabilities. Martinez proved that diversity could create strength when properly organized and led. Dr. Thompson's teams began developing weapons that combined technologies from multiple species, creating hybrid systems that were more effective than pure human or alien designs. The Alliance was achieving technological superiority through cooperation, while the Empire stagnated under rigid bureaucracy that prevented innovation. Thompson knew that creativity was defeating authority in the contest for galactic freedom. The Alliance Council established the principles that would govern post-war civilization based on human concepts of individual freedom and species independence. No world would be forced to join the Alliance, and no species would dominate others even after victory over the Empire. The Alliance fought to liberate, not to conquer, and this difference was attracting support from Imperial citizens who wanted freedom more than security. Admiral Kethvar prepared for the final campaign knowing that his empire faced enemies who had grown stronger through adversity, while Imperial forces had grown weaker through complacency. The humans who refused to kneel had taught the galaxy to stand together, and that unity was proving more powerful than Imperial authority. Admiral Marcus King stood at the center of the largest war room ever constructed, watching representatives from 23 species coordinate the final assault on the Zephyrian homeworld. 3 years of war had transformed a desperate human resistance into a galactic liberation movement that now commanded more ships than the Empire itself. King knew that victory was within reach, but the cost of failure would be the destruction of everything they had fought to achieve. Captain Ben Clark led fighter squadrons that included pilots from 12 different species flying ships that combined the best technologies each civilization could contribute. The hybrid fighters were faster than pure human designs and more maneuverable than alien craft because engineers had learned to merge different approaches to aerospace engineering. Clark's squadrons represented the alliance principle that cooperation created capabilities no single group could achieve alone. Commander Lisa Torres coordinated ground assault forces that would land on Zephyria Prime if the space battle succeeded in breaking orbital defenses. Her troops included enhanced humans fighting alongside Altarian energy specialists and Centauri demolition experts, trained in combined tactics that utilized each species' unique abilities. Torres knew that diversity in combat methods was the Alliance's greatest advantage over Imperial uniformity. Dr. Walter Fox made the discovery that changed everything when his research team found records hidden in captured Imperial archives. The Zephyrian Empire had been founded after their homeworld was devastated by a galactic war that destroyed dozens of civilizations. The original Zephyrians had genuinely believed that Imperial control was necessary to prevent chaos and protect weaker species from destroying themselves and each other. Admiral Kethvar received his final orders from the Imperial Council demanding that he destroy the Alliance fleet, regardless of cost, to Zephyrian forces. The Council preferred mutual destruction to accepting defeat because they could not imagine a galaxy where the Empire did not exist to maintain order. Kethvar realized that his own government had become the chaos they originally sought to prevent. Captain Morrison commanded the USS Defiance in its final battle after 3 years of war that had transformed both ship and crew. The vessel now carried hybrid weapons and alien crew members, working alongside humans in operations that would have been impossible when the war began. Morrison knew that his ship represented the future of galactic civilization, where different species worked together as equals. The space battle for Zephyria Prime began when Alliance fleets emerged from hyperspace in perfect coordination, despite including ships from 20 different species using incompatible technologies. Admiral King's command structure had learned to integrate alien capabilities with human tactical doctrine, creating a force that was greater than the sum of its parts. The Alliance fought as one people despite including dozens of different civilizations. Captain Clark's fighters broke through Zephyrian orbital defenses using tactics that combined human unpredictability with alien technological advantages. The Imperial forces expected conventional attack patterns, but Alliance pilots used creative methods that no military academy taught. Clark realized that innovation was defeating experience as creativity overcame rigid training. Dr. Fox's historical research revealed that the Zephyrian Empire had become the very evil it was created to oppose. Imperial expansion had destroyed more civilizations than the ancient war that motivated its founding. Fox knew that knowledge of this truth could end the conflict without requiring total victory if Alliance diplomats could convince Imperial leaders to accept reality. Commander Torres led the first Alliance forces to land on the Zephyrian homeworld, where they discovered that civilian populations were already in rebellion against their own government. Imperial citizens had learned about Alliance victories and began questioning whether their rulers had been lying about the necessity of empire. Torres found herself liberating Zephyrians from their own military forces. Admiral Kethvar faced the final battle knowing that his empire was doomed, but believing that honor required him to fight until death rather than surrender. He challenged Captain Morrison to single combat, believing that victory by the strongest warrior would restore Zephyrian pride even in defeat. Kethvar could not understand enemies who fought for principles rather than conquest. Captain Morrison accepted the challenge but fought not to destroy Kethvar, but to show him the truth about what the Alliance represented. The battle became a philosophical debate as much as physical combat, as Morrison explained that freedom was stronger than authority and cooperation was more powerful than domination. Morrison fought to convert his enemy, not kill him. The ground battle ended when Zephyrian civilians joined Alliance forces in overthrowing their own government after learning that Imperial propaganda about alien inferiority had been lies. The citizens discovered that cooperation between species was creating a better civilization than Imperial control had ever achieved. The revolution came from within as much as from without. Dr. Fox presented his historical evidence to surviving Imperial leaders, showing them how their empire had betrayed its original principles and become a force for oppression rather than protection. The revelation broke the psychological foundations that supported imperial authority as leaders realized they had become the chaos they sought to prevent. Truth was more devastating than any weapon. Admiral Kethvar yielded to Captain Morrison. When he finally understood that the Alliance fought to liberate, not conquer, and sought to protect freedom rather than impose control, the Zephyrian commander realized that his empire had lost not because humans were stronger, but because Alliance principles were better than Imperial doctrine. Kethvar chose to join the cause he had fought against. The war ended when the Imperial Council voted to dissolve the Empire and join the Galactic Federation that Alliance representatives proposed. The new government would be based on voluntary cooperation between independent species rather than forced submission to Imperial authority. Every world would choose its own path while working together for mutual benefit and protection. Admiral King oversaw the transformation of Imperial fleets into Federation peacekeeping forces, commanded by officers from multiple species including reformed Zephyrians who wanted to atone for past oppression. The Alliance had won by proving that diversity created strength, while unity built on respect was more stable than control based on fear. Captain Morrison became the first human admiral in the Galactic Federation, but insisted that leadership rotate between species so that no single group could dominate the others. The Federation Constitution included human principles of individual freedom and species independence that prevented any future empire from arising. Liberty was protected by law rather than force. The epilogue showed human exploration ships traveling to distant galaxies carrying the message that had sparked the greatest liberation in galactic history. They brought news that freedom was possible and cooperation was stronger than conquest. The species that refused to kneel had taught the universe to stand together, and the lesson would spread to every world that needed hope. Humanity had stood tall when aliens expected them to kneel, and in doing so had lifted the entire galaxy to stand together in freedom that would endure because it was built on choice rather than force, and maintained through cooperation rather than domination.